members of the parliament, respected seniors, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me here to talk on Bhutan for Life, particularly on the innovative financing. And now I'm pretty sure that half of the house may not know about Bhutan for Life. So maybe I'll put a context first, and then maybe I'll touch on that, and hopefully I will finish within the time allocated to me. Bhutan for Life now, before introducing that, I would like to first quote from His Majesty's speech. Bhutan for Life is not for youth, but it belongs to the youth of Bhutan. And that was expressed, quoted from Her Majesty Gyaltsin's address during the launch of the Bhutan for Life initiative in 2017, November 11, coinciding with the 4th King's birth anniversary. So with this, now I would like to first touch on the conservation journey of Bhutan, far-sighted vision of our monarchs. And maybe we might now again touch on why the nature environment is important in the context of Bhutanese, looking at the terrain and the setting of the mountainous countries in the Himalayas. So if you just look at starting from the 1900, His Majesty King Konsar Ugyamwachu, starting from the unification of the country to the second king, political consolidation, to the third king on the culture and plant development, and fourth on the democracy, hydropower, all the developmental activities taking place, and the fifth, Our Majesty, the fifth king. So if you look at all the journeys throughout, I think the environment is one of the core, the developmental part of that activities. So we have a very long visionary, and we have a far-sighted monarchs. They put environment in the forefront of all the developmental activities. And I think that itself shows that Bhutan should remain, as already reflected in the constitution of the Kingdom of Bhutan, the 60% forest. But as mentioned earlier, that I think by some speakers that having 60 and now we have 70 and removing 10%, I think it makes no much, the cases in that case. So I will have several discussions in the following slides. And because of all these visionary monarchs, and their strategies and the plant activities, we have the highest forest proportion of forest cover in Asia, 71%, and part of one of the world's 10 most biodiverse regions. And a major milestone in 1993 is the declaration of the comprehensive network of protected areas. And we have 10 protected areas and 8 biological corridors. And protected areas consist of national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, strict nature reserves, and the biological corridors that links all the protected areas. And in 1999, designation of the biological corridors linking all the protected areas. And we made such a huge, the efforts in the field of conservation. And because of the result of all these conservation efforts, it sequesters more than 6 million tons of carbon dioxide annually, almost 5 million acres of protected areas that constitutes 52% of the total land area under the protected area. Yet, we have a lot of issues and threats, crossroads. For example, low economic diversification, high youth unemployment, human-wildlife conflict on the rise. We have illegal wildlife trades. We have a very porous border with our neighboring countries. I don't need to mention here. And then we have Bhutan needs a critical funding to address all these emerging issues. So that's where Bhutan for Life comes into action. And foreign aid, as you know, that Bhutan is graduating from LDC to mid-country level, mid-income country. We have to sustain, we have to maintain, we have to manage our own protected areas. So now the challenges, I think it's contradicting that we have more forest, we have more trees, will lead to high water. And I still now challenge the talk that comes up earlier. So we have a very good forest resources, Yet we have a lot of human interference within the forest, especially on the up catchments. We have all the degradations. We have the democracy with, democracy comes in the network of roads as pledged by all the, I don't blame any of the politicians, but I think it's the pledge of anybody, even for us, even the local governments. I think we pledge that we will connect you to each household, rural households. But we really need to look into how seriously it will impact the natural environment. And as a result, I think we have the natural disaster as well as the man-made. We have flash floods, we have fire, we have roadblocks, and just in a few days back, the recent, in the council issue that there were 23 roadblocks all over the country, especially in the east and the south. And if we can maintain a good forest cover, a good vegetation cover, I do not think that we have such a disasters, especially when it comes to flash floods and the roadblocks. So we really need to think that we need to work, bureaucrats and politicians and, and the CSOs, NGOs need to work together. We need to talk together. We need to come together to achieve all these issues. And the challenges like 23 roadblocks, council systems, drying paddy fields, it's all the climate change. We cannot, change the climate patterns, but we can do something to actually reduce and mitigate. We have fire lit 35 homeless in July 4, and recent rain cost from the millions in July 3. So, in the short period of time, we have all these issues happening. Delayed monsoon, first fire only in June, in the monsoon. And this clearly shows there's climate change is happening. But we cannot change, we cannot make, change the pattern of the climate globally, but we can do something at local level. And we cannot extract the forest. We cannot take out the trees to reduce this, the impacts of climate change. I think we need good forest coverage to maintain and to mitigate the issues. And towards protecting water sources, these are some ways that we can do it actually. Payment for environmental services at Chirang. These are some good signs that we need to innovate and come up with. And with this, like even the land use changes. In 2003, a very, a nice open crater grazing, but in 2007, you see what will happen now if there's a, as I mentioned earlier, you pour water on the sponge and water on the bare soil. As Namgir mentioned that, I did not mention where the soil is, but of course, if you place in a level, in condition of the Bhutan, 90% terrain, I don't think that having good forest cover will have more, advantage than having no forest. And following 2000 and 2005 with ecotourism, we need to plan properly, then only we can achieve. So we need to find a way in between. Balance and sustainable development paradigm is very much required. To balance the need for economic development with need to protect natural resources. Balance opportunities in the cities with incentives in the rural villages. These are something that we desire to do it. And balance tradition with the desire for modern amenities. These are challenges. There are ways that we can actually achieve such things. And what's the solution now? It comes to, Bhutan for Life can be one of the strategic and long-term innovative solutions. And we are blessed with the Royal Charter that Bhutan for Life is important, is on time to institute it, to establish, to protect our natural environment for now and for the future generation. As said earlier, that Bhutan for Life is not for the youth. Bhutan for Life belongs to the youth. Bhutan for Life belongs to the youth. And Bhutan for Life is a project financed for permanence. Bhutan for Life is an innovative funding initiative that aims to provide a sustained flow of finance to maintain the country's protected areas and biological corridors for perpetuity. We set 14 years until Bhutanese government takes over the cost entirely without any foreign assistance. So which means we are already in the mid-income country. So now, during that, we need to find out. Okay, time is running out, but I will try to finish it within the time given. And I may not able to sit here after the presentation because I have a very, very important meeting that need to be attend. So I have to leave. So maybe I'll take that time to, to present my presentation here. And any question you can write to me in email. I'll give you an email address. And Bhutan for Life from 2013 conceived to 2019 the Secretariat Institute established. And the project finance for permanence from Wall Street to protected areas. So in the, you can see this, it is a multi-party single closing deal where a group of donors commit funds towards Bhutan for Life, but the funds are held and not distributed until the total fundraising commitment goal has been reached. So we set the fund goals at 40 to 45 million USD, and it was achieved in 2017. So we closed the deal, and then accordingly the matching fund need to be contributed from the royal government of Bhutan, about 30 to 35 million USD. And then we have that the heart of the deal is the conservation plan and the financial plan. So we have already that plan for the next 14 years. And this is the financial model. The red part, upper part, is the donor money, that is 43 million US dollar. And then the light blue is the matching fund that need to be, that is committed by the Royal Government of Bhutan. And that is where we need to find innovative technologies to support and to fill up the financial gap. And we have also the funding support from the Bhutan Trust for Environmental Conservation of 500,000 US dollar every year until the 14th. And then we have 2.9 million US dollar per year existing. That comes in the form of the current cost. And annual payments from the transition fund will start high and then decline to zero over a projected period of 14 years. Why high? Because we need to build the capacity at the park level. We need to build the facilities. We need to build the structures so that all the conditions are met. Then we can actually put our efforts to make it more innovative. Like, for example, ecotourism. There are a lot of ways that I will come up later. And at the same time, the RGOB will increase its funding by approximately 5 to 7% annually over 14-year term, after which Bhutan is responsible for fully funding all the protected areas. So the potential sources of internal funding can be diversifying the ecotourism products. We have a lot of festivals, highland festivals, bird festival, mushroom festival. We have so many festivals, but we need to make it more innovative, to make it more attractive. And then supporting the people in the protected areas through job creation, income generating opportunities, because protected area covers 52%, and we have about 20% of the rural people living within the protected area. So we need to bring the livelihood of those people living in those areas. Carbon sequestration, 2.6 million ton, RED Plus strategy action plan. So 50 million hectare. If we can manage, if we can put it into a sustainable use, we can have the carbon sequestration of 2.6 million. Debt swapping with neighboring countries by having, protecting the forests can actually benefit the country at large. And potential financing opportunity can be from green tax levied on the import of vehicles, as I think the earlier speakers talk a lot on those vehicles and so on, vehicle quota and so on. So including the minimum tax to foreign vehicles of entering to the country. So if you look at this two scenario in 2006 and 2019, then you can see at the same time, at the same location. So such things we do not want to have, the sustainable ecotourism. I think we need to do something to, to make it more viable and more sustainable to introduce. And then the other thing is on the payment for ecosystem services from the hydropower. 1% of the 15% royalties from the hydropower, which comes to about 10 million per year, actually, in their policy is for the conservation of the upper catchments, but it goes to the national coffer, and it can become in any forms. So that we can actually discuss on those issues. And then pilot schemes at the smaller. That is very successful. We have Yopokong Community Community Forestry, manage the waterheads, and the municipal and Mongo using the water as the service users and providers. And they negotiate within them, and they pay certain fees every year to the upstream communities. Similarly, Burke at Pasakha watershed and the industries, they may negotiate it, and they pay certain amounts to maintain and sustain the forest. and the water sources. Similarly in Paro, so we can upscale, we can do a lot of innovative ideas to, and this is already in one of the core mandates of the Bhutan for Life, to upscale those payment for environmental services. The other could be public-private partnership, ecotourism, leasing or letting some of the parks, which is very feasible, to some NGOs, CSOs to take over, so that can reduce the burden, the budget that need to be met from the government can be actually taken care of by some NGOs. Those are some ideas that we can do it. For example, Jigme Dorji National Park can be leased to private or group to operate and manage to ecotourism, hospital. They can manage, they can do everything, but we can sign a MOU with the private and the CSOs. And of course, if Bhutan for Life is known, very popular, it is first of its kind in Asia and one of the few PFPs in the world. So in America, with Great Bear, in Costa Rica, Forever, ARPA in Brazil, and in Asia, Bhutan for Life, with the 43.1 million first in Asia. And with this BFL, what will happen? 51% of the forest, of the land, put under improved management, sustainable management. And then 35.1 million tons of carbon can be sequestrated at the end of the period. And 20% of the rural livelihood will be enhanced and supported. And as a popular saying, the middle path, as a development philosophy, it is better to have milk and cheese many times than beef just once. So I will not go for logging of trees in the country. Having less forest and more water is absolutely wrong. And Native American proverb says, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. So we need to hand over our nature to our children intact and in pristine state. Thank you very much, and sorry for taking a few minutes. Thank you.